Satan is a problem. Satan is a problem. I've been saying that for years. As it were, provokes sin. Satan likes to come up and punch you and encourage you and lie to you and make you think it's okay. Blinds your eyes, covers it up. I preached a sermon 45 years ago, 50 years ago. All of Satan's apples have worms. All of Satan's apples have worms. I bet you didn't know that, John, did you? The apple on the outside is so good you want to bite into it, but when you bite into Satan's apple, it has a worm in it. And because man is a sinner, he finds himself in dominion of Satan, in the dominion of Satan. And in that dominion, his sin is excited by everything that Satan can do to excite that sinfulness. I made the mistake of saying, I want to watch Channel 3. I was teasing my wife today. She said, what's on? I said, beach volleyball. She said, oh, no, you're not. I said, honey, I'll just look in their eyes. Sorry about that. What are they trying to sell? Volleyball or lust?
Lust.
Well, of course. And in that dominion, he then is incorrigible rebel. He basically is a criminal, Satan is. And because Satan dominates the world of man, the problem is not just human. Well, it's just human. No, it is supernaturally intensified. We're already have a sinful nature by nature. But it's intensified by Satan intensifying it, adding on to it. I have to recognize I'm a sinful person. And Satan would like to intensify it by putting beach volleyball on. Or every time you turn around, they want you to gamble on this guy won $1 million playing some kind of sports stuff. Intensifying by saying you can win $1 million. Same thing. He has a way of exciting the senses by designing in the world to cause men to step into sin. Most of us have been to the county fair. We've seen that row. All of us, perhaps at one time or another, have lost money playing those crazy games that are designed to trick you and you're not going to win. Ephesians chapter 2 says, when it says that men are victims of the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that works in the children of disobedience. So when you are disobedient to the principles of God, Satan is taking control of your life, and you see nothing wrong. You see nothing wrong in doing what you do. Satan has convinced you that the decision that you have made is perfectly all right because it entices your gratification and when your gratification, you feel good for a moment or two. The problem in our world then relates to sin and to Satan. And because man is a sinner, he finds himself in the domain of Satan, and in that domain, his sin is excited by everything that Satan can do to excite that sinfulness. You want to go around the world once. Enjoy the gusto of life. And if we look through the pages of Scripture, we are very much aware of the fact that Satan is in control of our world. Remember back in Matthew chapter 4, or Luke chapter, what is it in Luke? The Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days. Listen, Satan went to the wilderness the first day that Jesus got there. Satan was with Jesus 40 days and 40 nights, not just that one incident. And we see Satan takes Jesus aside and says to him these words in verse 8, Matthew 4:8. All these things. And he has just shown him the kingdoms of the world. And it says that in verse 8, and he shows him all the kingdoms of the world and says, all these things will I give you if you will fall down and worship me. That's an important verse you need to look at. Satan is the king and dominates his kingdom in this world. John chapter 5, 1 John 5, 1 John 5. 1 John 5 says, and it's very interesting to me that Satan said that, because it indicates to me that Satan possesses the various kingdoms of the world. How else could he say he would give them to Jesus? He knew better than lie to Jesus because he had the kingdoms. He knew that. God gave him the kingdoms of this world to control. The kingdom of the world are in the possession of Satan. 1 John chapter 5. The whole world lies in the lap of the wicked one. 1 John chapter 5. Luke chapter 4, as Luke is giving this account of the temptation of Christ, it says, the devil said to him, all this authority will I give you, and the glory of them. That is, the kingdom of the world, for that is delivered unto me, and whomsoever I will give it. Satan is in control of this universe. Luke chapter 4, we saw that. John chapter 12. Satan, you see, is in charge of the kingdoms of the world, and he has prerogative to give them to whomever he will. And that's very important perception. In the Gospel of John chapter 12, and I think in verse 31. Ron, you have that? Mm-hmm. Verse 31.
Now is
verse 30. I'm sorry, verse 30.
30. Jesus answered and said, this voice came not because of me, but for your sakes.
Are you chapter 12?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 31. I'm sorry, I want John 14:30 is the next verse I want. Verse 31, John 12:31.
Yes.
John 12:31, that's my fault.
Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of the world be cast out. And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me.
Satan is called the what of the world? prince. And Jesus said, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be what? Cast out. And Jesus, with his own mouth, affirmed the monarchy in a sense that Satan has over this world. John 14:30. John 14:30. Are you there? Go ahead.
Hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh and hath nothing in me.
Notice it says, Jesus said this, the prince of this world comes but has nothing on me. And again, Satan is called the prince of this world. Also in John 16:11. John 16:11. Notice what it says. John 16:11. Jesus again calls him the prince of this world and says he will be judged as the prince of this world. Is that what it says, Misty? Is that what it says?
Yes, it says of judgment because
Yes, yeah.
the prince of this world is judged.
Yeah. And Jesus called him what?
Prince of this world.
The prince of this world. Jesus doesn't lie. Now, we want to keep this in mind because it is an important balance to what we're going to learn in Romans chapter 13. Isn't that amazing? How you come up with, how does all that fit in Romans 13 pans out? That is weird, isn't it? I'm glad somebody smarter than I am figuring all this out. Satan is the one who basically is in charge of the kingdom of this world. And he has the right, by his own testimony, to give them to whoever he chooses. Just to demonstrate this further, turn, if you will, to Daniel chapter 10. Daniel chapter 10. And we've done Daniel. Have we taught Daniel here? I don't remember what I've done. It's what I haven't done. Daniel chapter 10. Daniel chapter 10. One book that I was asked to preach again in 16 years was to do the book of Daniel. I did it twice. In Daniel chapter 10, I think it's in verse 10, maybe. Daniel 10:10. Suddenly, a hand touched me, which made me tremble on my knees and on the palms of my hands. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you, and stand upright. For I have now been sent to you. While he was speaking this word to me, I stood trembling. Now, before we get involved in our text in Romans, Daniel 10 is a very interesting incident that takes place. It gives us a good insight into the matter of Satan's dominion. How does Satan control the world around us? And he said, when he had spoken this word to me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and chaste thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. Now, what this tells us, if you remember, that Daniel has been praying a prayer. What is the longest time that you have prayed a prayer to God and it hasn't been answered yet? How long have you prayed a prayer to God and the answer hasn't got to God yet. Very interesting thought. That prayer had been lifted to God in the, page 21, I'm sorry. Verse 23, Daniel chapter 9. He prayed to God on behalf of his people, and the answer came that there will be a response on the part of God, and the messenger from heaven is sent with an answer to Daniel. But verse 13 says, I think of chapter 9, the prince of the kingdom of Persia. Have you seen that? Chapter 9, verse 13 says, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood.
That's something about Moses, wasn't it?
That's chapter 10.
Chapter 10, verse 13. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 120 days. Now catch it. Now here is a picture of an angel come from God to bring a response to Daniel, and that angel is stopped in the process of coming to Daniel in heaven by the prince of the kingdom of Persia.